Hi everyone, welcome back to yet another session of YouTube Live. Today's topic, what we're discussing on YouTube Live is what's happening to the markets. The key points in terms of the market breadth, the levels of 22,800, a very important support for the Nifty so far on technical basis, because over the last many sessions, and especially I think over the last 3 consecutive days, as well as over the last say 1 month, there have been 4 attempts for the index to try and break that 22,800 mark. Yes, we've had intraday breaches, intraday corrections for the Nifty falling below the 22,800 mark. But then, interestingly, so far, the index is holding on to that 22,800 levels. So, what is it telling you about the overall construct of the market? What is it telling you? That is the selling going to stop anytime soon? For the mid caps and small caps, what is the level of the support which we are looking out for in terms of index? But the most important point which we're looking out for are two things. First is that, is there any other scare which is coming back into the global markets? So I'll start discussing one chart which I believe could probably start to bring some bit of scare across the global market, specifically the US markets. And the second and the most important part, if you remember in the previous sessions of YouTube Live, we were discussing that there is one sector like the banking and the financials which is still showing signs of strength. So there are few pockets of private sector banking names which are showing signs of relative strength. But now, are there any other sectors which are starting to show those? I think if I can use the word blooming signs, that there could be a potential revival as well as a positive trend coming back into that pocket. So that will keep the discussion the later half of today's in this session. So like what we do, I would urge everyone to ensure that you like the video, you share the video, subscribe to the channel, as well as ensure that you click onto that notification bell. So we'll start off with today's discussion on YouTube Live, where we are looking at the zones of the markets, whether the Nifty will hold on to that 22,800 level, whether we are looking at a point where the markets are extremely oversold. So I hope you guys can see the presentation, right? Okay, cool. So we'll start off with the first and the most important part of today's presentation is just to discuss what happened to the markets in terms of the data. Now, I'm sure all of you guys have looked at the data today and probably think that maybe, hey, finally the FIs have turned to buyers. So the provisional numbers which we received was almost 4,786 crores from the FIs on the cash segment, and the DI is around 3,072 crores. But the number for the FIs is still negative. Why? Because this is after that 8,800 crores of number on the net negative side for Bharti Airtel. I think around 8,000 crores. So which means that the total for the FII, or the actual number for FII, is still negative 3,000 some 200 odd crores on the cash segment. So you can probably say that slight less selling for the FIs in terms of the quantum, because we've seen 4,000 crores of an average selling from the FIIs. So hopefully this time around the number is a tad bit less, but yes, it's still on the negative side in terms of the net numbers for the FIIs. Now, interestingly, the second part is where we look at the Nifty chart. So I'll take you to the Nifty uh, charts and yep, okay, the recent charts for the Nifty 50 and how the index is poised at a current level. So we look at the charts for the index. Yep, this is where it is. These are the recent charts for the Nifty 50. As you can see that the charts are so far indicative. We are at a point where the index is still facing a lot of resistance. So as I was mentioning that this is the support point for the Nifty on the short-term charts. We can see 22,800 mark. There have been one, two, three attempts, four attempts for the index. So even if you draw, say, a horizontal line at 22,800 levels, as you can see, four attempts for the index to try and break the 22,800 mark. But क्या हो रहा है? Touch and go हो रहा है. Intraday break हो जाता है 22,800 mark. But fortunately, the index recovers and there is a buffer of 100 points. But does it mean that is this actually a very positive sign for the markets, or this is just an indication that maybe abhi ke liye bolte na balatali, but so far the markets are still in a protected zone? The answer for that actually comes when you look at the resistance. So there are two things which are happening for the index. One is that from the 26,000 levels, when we look at the index chart, the index is still into a downtrend. So if you remember, I think we had joined the trend line when we looked at joining these two major points of resistance, and then interestingly we got the third point of resistance, and यहीं से market almost reverse किया था. अगर हम line chart पे देखोगे तो आपको एकदम clear दिखेगा कि almost from this zone 23,800 is where the market start to reverse. Now what's happening is that the range, or rather the resistance for the index is falling. The support for the index is still staying there. Let's look closely on the intraday charts. So here we may get a much more better hang or a better picture. So what's happening right now on an intraday basis? This is the range the index is trying to just about trade into. So 22,970. So mota moti 23,000 as a round figure. That's a number where the index is finding resistance. So you can see this very chotu sa range, very small range, a tight range for the index. 23,000 broadly as a resistance, and you can see this 22,800. This has been the level which has been tested 4-5 times intraday wise. अगर हम नेट डेली बेसिस पे देखोगे तो शायद आपको एक या दो या तीन बार ही दिखेगा. But on intraday wise, there have been multiple tests for the index to break that 22,800 levels. But so far, we are grinding into this 200 point range for the Nifty. So, if you remember, we were discussing this point that generally क्या हो रहा है, first half an hour, first 1 hour, FIs की selling होती है. So if you remember, we were discussing this point that the first hour from 9:20 to say 10:20, 10:30, मोटा मोटी is a round of major selling. यहाँ पे market देखने का काम ही नहीं बनता है basically. So यहाँ पे अगर आप market देखोगे तो everything would be negative. Like the advanced decline ratio would be extremely negative. The stocks which are falling are extremely negative, etc. But now comes a point where mid-session wise, you see a gradual recovery. But even after the gradual recovery, the index is unable to surpass the level of 23,000 mark. So the first major resistance which you have to look out for on the Nifty is this 22,975, which means you give it a buffer of 25 points. 23,000 as a net number on the intraday basis could be a breakout point for the Nifty. So which means if we break 23,000 mark and if we don't fall below 22,800 levels, say in the next few days again, there is a higher chance that we may start scaling up maybe 200 points higher. So this is a 200 point range, 23,000 se lekar 22,800. On a confirmation of a break about 23,000 mark, we will look at the next target of 23,200 for the Nifty. So a 200 point range. Now, interestingly, for the Bank Nifty, as you can see, that the Bank Nifty is starting to come back into a retest of the trend line resistance. So if you remember our discussion that the Bank Nifty is a relatively stronger index, okay, relatively, and especially within the banks, the private sector banks are the ones which are relatively strong. So far, the charts for Bank Nifty indicate that maybe the strength for the Bank Nifty could start to get a little bit more pronounced. And you might actually expect that if the Bank Nifty breaks now 49,200 mark, you could see some bit of short covering coming back into the banking index. Okay, support wise, so again, the major support for the Bank Nifty, you can see this trend line. First, second, approximate third time, and then fourth and fifth. You can see multiple times the Bank Nifty is holding on to this 48,700 levels for the index. Okay, this becomes a very crucial support for the Bank Nifty. So जनरली क्या होता है इसमें आर्ली चार्ट्स पे देखोगे तो आपको शायद बेटर दिखेगा. आवरली चार्ट्स पे अगर 48,700 होल्ड करता है तो then that becomes like a stop loss or a support point for traders who are especially looking at the short term arena for the Bank Nifty. Yeah, I think Sridhar Srinivas is asking that let's discuss on also one stock which can be traded in futures in every live session. I'll try and do that. But today, what I'll also give, Sridhar, is a sector other than the banking and the private banking names, which is starting to look attractive. We'll also look at maybe two, three charts. So that could give you a inference, not a suggestion, not a recommendation, an inference that which are the stocks within that sector which is starting to look relatively strong. Now, the first comparison which we are looking out for is that Nifty versus dollar index. Now, if you all know that dollar index is one of the major reasons why you've seen the index falling very sharply. If so far, for example, dollar index has a negative correlation with respect to Nifty. So I've just explained this to you in a very simple kind of a chart, that this is the Nifty chart. The blue line is the Nifty chart. Red is a dollar index. Red matlab khatra. So red is where I've kept the dollar index. Blue is maybe blue sky scenarios. You might probably expect some recovery. But the idea is that when the dollar index falls, the Nifty actually comes into a rally mode. When the dollar index rises, just look at the mouse which I am moving into. When the dollar index rises, the Nifty corrects. What does this mean? That there is an inverse correlation of the Nifty with respect to the dollar index. Now, what has happened is dollar index from 110, you can see this red line, from 110 has moved gradually towards 107. Apparently, in that phase, the Nifty has still not managed to rise. तो अगर आप देख रहे हो यहाँ पे एक थोड़ा सा बाउंस आया था, यहाँ पे एक रैली आई थी, बट ये सोल्ड आउट हो गया था मार्केट्स एंड वी कुड नॉट सस्टेन. Dollar index, so we look out for a break or a breakout point. अगर डॉलर इंडेक्स 105 तोड़ता है, so whenever dollar index 105, when it breaks 105 levels, I believe that there should be at least a vertical kind of a rally which should happen suddenly for the Nifty. So at least like a 300 or a 500 point rally which can happen just on the basis of confirmation that dollar index breaks 105. Why 105? So historically, in a rally, so agar for example in this leg of the rally for dollar index, there was a 10-point rally. 50% whenever the dollar index retraces 50%, that's a point where we expect that the Nifty, in case if there is a mismatched correlation, the Nifty starts to get realigned. तो 100 से 110 डॉलर इंडेक्स गया था, 105 becomes a litmus point. So if the dollar index breaks 105, I believe that there could be a very sharp recovery or a rally for the Nifty in the near term. So just keep that level in the mind when you're looking at the Nifty chart, because if you start to see, say in the next 1 week, 2 weeks, dollar index still falling slowly, gradually, there could be a point where the Nifty may start to look very attractive. So keep that thought in mind. The second chart, we discussed this previous week that the Nifty P ratio will come to an attractive. So in the next YouTube lives also, whenever I feel that the Nifty P ratio is coming to an attractive territory, that's where I think all of us, you should look to start nibbling into the markets rather than thinking of closing your positions out and then declaring the uncle point for the markets. I don't know if you guys were there for a Sunday's webinar. On Sunday's webinar, we discussed the uncle's point on the FII angle, what happens at the uncle point and what the reaction is for the market participants. So the Nifty P ratio is at 20.4. You can see we have broken below the previous lows of November 2023, and we have also come closer to that 2022 point for the Nifty P ratio, which means भाव 23,000 का है इंडेक्स का, बट स्टॉक्स के भाव मोटा मोटी 19,000 के आसपास ऑलरेडी आ चुके हैं मार्केट्स के. सो विच मीन्स मार्केट्स are coming into a zone of relatively oversold. But the biggest oversold territories, as you can see, this 18.67 and 18.9, which means the moment we hit 19 or sub 19 mark, Indian markets will start to look very attractive and cheap. Okay, keep this number in mind. The next chart, and this could be a scary chart, I think so, because right now not many people are talking about it, but I strongly expect that the Japanese yen could probably come back to spook the global markets once again. Because क्या हो रहा है recently, the Japanese yen has started to appreciate again from 158, 57. We are coming back to 151, 152 for the Japanese yen. Ideally, if this level breaks again, 50% retracement का concept, अगर 50% retracement का level break होता है, then Japanese yen will start to look like a scare scenario for the globe. So if you remember, last time when Japanese yen started to appreciate, August 5th happened, August 5th 2024, where global markets, Indian markets, I think most of the markets fell by 4-5% sharply. I think in a matter of 1 or 2 days, or maybe 3-4 days. So just keep an eye. If the Japanese index falls below this 149 level, which is the previous support, and again a 50% retracement of that 20-point jump for the Japanese yen, 17-18 point jump for the Japanese yen. So start to be little bit more cautious, because क्या होगा ऐसे टाइम पे आप देखोगे कि गिफ्ट निफ्टी will also show negative, the Dow will also show negative, you will see Asian markets also showing negative price trends. So right now, as I said, that the world is not talking about it, but if the Japanese yen breaks this level of 149 and falls lower in terms of the points, look to be little bit more cautious. Okay, keep this at the back of your mind. But the point is the market breadth oversold? And if it is, then how do we judge the market breadth oversold? Like what we do every time, we give you one interesting bit of analysis. So today's interesting bit of analysis is what happens in big bear markets and what is the data point which changes in the big bear markets. So in this big bear market, an ideal scenario, generally we say 95 to 98% of the stocks in the mid caps, in the small caps, and many a times even in the large caps, when these indices, 95 to 98% of the stocks, when they fall below their key moving averages, the 20, 50, 100 moving averages, 100 moving averages, that's where we say that markets are coming into a extreme capitulation phase. तो ये एक डेटा पॉइंट हमेशा याद रखना, 95% और 98% के आसपास का डेटा आ गया था, अगर आया तो ये इंडिकेट कर रहा है कि मार्केट बहुत ज्यादा ओवरसोल्ड हो गया है. ओवरसोल्ड मार्केट्स जनरली आर डिफिकल्ट टू हैंडल, बिकॉज अगर आप बॉटम बाय करोगे तो हो सकता है मार्केट्स कैन स्टॉप यू आउट, but that's generally a starting point where the markets seed into a V-shaped recovery. So it doesn't happen immediately, but that's where the major seeds are laid when the market starts to become oversold. What is the data showing right now? On the Nifty 50, Nifty Mid Cap 50, and the Nifty Small Cap 50. You can see the data so far on the Nifty 50 is 82% of the stocks have fallen below their 100-day moving averages in the Nifty 50 basket. 88% stocks. So कल तक ही 92 था. In fact, so this is day before yesterday. This is yesterday's data. Today's data is awaited. So 88% to 90% stocks. And again in small caps, 86% to 88% stocks, 90% stocks. तो जैसे ही नंबर 92 और 95 के बीच में आता है या 95 के आसपास आएगा ये नंबर, वहां पे द मार्केट ब्रेथ विल स्टार्ट टू लुक extremely oversold. I don't know if you guys have the data, but when we called out the data, 2008, 2020, 2022, if you remember that Russia Ukraine Feb 2022, these were the points where the market breadth became 92, 95, 98% of the stocks falling below their averages. And that was the point where 20, 50, 100 तीनों moving averages के नीचे 95% stocks हुआ करते थे. So that's the point where we expect the markets to get into a quicker turnaround. So just keep that thought in mind. And now we look at how to maybe look at selection of stocks. So one question was, I think by Srinivas, right, Sridhar, right, that how do we try and identify stocks which are relatively strong and outperformers? So सबसे पहला होता है, you look at the price scale analysis. You remember we were discussing that financial services names are showing signs of outperformance, banking stocks are showing signs of outperformance. Why is that? You look at the data over here. So this is the data till day before, rather till yesterday's closing. So Bajaj Finserv on weekly basis is up 5%. Okay, which means that that's a relatively strong stock. You're seeing some new stocks emerging. I'll move the mouse over here, but then we'll discuss in the next few slides. You see this new stocks emerging, surprisingly, on the weekly and the monthly charts, where there are new names which are emerging as a potential एब्सोल्यूट आउट परफॉर्मेंस. सो ये हम एब्सोल्यूट आउट परफॉर्मेंस की बात कर रहे हैं. रिलेटिव आउट परफॉर्मेंस भी आएगा इन द नेक्स्ट डिस्कशन, इन द नेक्स्ट स्लाइड्स. सो यहां पे इंडिकेट हो रहा है कि फाइनेंशियल्स, बैंकिंग के साथ देर आर सम अदर स्टॉक्स विच आर शोइंग और स्टार्टिंग टू शो साइंस ऑफ स्ट्रेंथ. Okay, like Bajaj Finance, Finserv, strong. IndusInd Bank, monthly charts, strong. Shriram Finance, strong. Two names, which you can see, two names, okay, which are showing signs of relative, or rather absolute strength. We will look at this on a relative basis also. यहाँ पे देखो weekly chart पे, which are the stocks which are showing signs of strength? Weekly charts पे Ashok Leyland, signs of strength. Ashok Leyland monthly charts पे signs of strength. UPL, Muthoot Finance, SBI card, signs of absolute strength. So generally it is considered to be, again not a recommendation, generally it is considered to be that if stocks start to show signs of absolute performance on the weekly and monthly basis, वो stocks generally hold कर जाते हैं, है ना. So like 8 out of 10 scenarios ऐसे स्टॉक्स होंगे जो करेक्शंस को एब्जॉर्ब कर लेंगे इंट्राडे, और जैसे ही मार्केट रिकवर कर जाता है ये सारे स्टॉक्स होते हैं जो जनरली वापस अपने इंट्राडे हाइस के आसपास आ जाते हैं. सो दैट शुड कीप योर माइंड्स थिंकिंग दैट हाउ टू फाइंड स्टॉक्स ऑन अ एब्सोल्यूट बेसिस. Look at the charts again over, look at the data again over here. There are few stocks which have started to show signs of positive returns or outperformance. So try and concentrate on those kind of stocks where there is a relative degree of outperformance, an absolute degree of outperformance. And then we look at the relative charts also. See this relative chart? This is the major chart. So this is the chart which I look at almost daily to see which sectors are showing signs of a relative scale of outperformance. Can you see this? And can you tell me which is the sector which is showing signs of potential recovery? है ना. हमने एब्सोल्यूट स्केल में देखा दो स्टॉक्स के नाम रिपीट हो रहे थे लार्ज कैप स्टॉक्स में से. हम रिलेटिव स्केल पे देख रहे हैं तो एक सेक्टर है. I'll move the mouse over here. You can probably put this on the comment box. Can you see this? I would want everyone to write it on the comment box. Which sector is this? Okay. Now let's look at the charts. So let's look at the charts very quickly. So we look at JSW Steel. अब आप देख रहे हो क्या हो रहा है JSW Steel में. हम यहाँ पे बात कर रहे हैं. So look at the charts of Nifty 50. We are talking at a point over here where Nifty 50 is nowhere close to the trend line resistance, right? Nowhere close to trend line. We've looked at Bank Nifty. Bank Nifty is coming closer to that trend line resistance. But then which is the chart which apparently is coming into a trend line resistance? मतलब यहाँ पे there is a relative degree of outperformance which is started. Is this the only chart? Let's look at another name. Again, not a recommendation, but that gives you a sense where the markets are relatively placing these stocks. Right, Sridhar? Right, Kavita? Atin, Alice, Gururaj, Nilesh, Manoj Kumar, Seshu, Chandru, MK, Ramakrishnan, Manohar, Amit Bisht, Alice, right? You're getting the hang? How do you identify sectors and within sectors identifying the stocks? जहां पे relative एज वेल एज एब्सोल्यूट स्केलिंग होता है। हम जहां पे जज करते हैं कि ये वाले स्टॉक्स होते हैं ना जो जल्दी शायद आउट परफॉर्म करना चालू करेंगे। सो वी लुक्ड एट जेएसडब्ल्यू स्टील, वी लुक्ड एट टाटा स्टील। लेट्स लुक एट द अदर स्टॉक। हिंडाल्को, थर्ड चार्ट, थर्ड स्टॉक, है ना, अगेन showing similar kind of characteristics.